This is the final week for early voting in Harris County. Go to the polls before Friday if you want to vote ahead of Election Day. But if you're one of those traditionalists who wants to hit it Election Day, that is a week from tomorrow, Tuesday, November 4th. In my script, it says 3rd, but it's the 4th. If you still have questions about deadlines, applications, mail-in voting, or anything procedural, today is your chance. Joining us now to answer your questions and walk us through the process is Harris County Clerk Teneshia Hudspeth. Teneshia, welcome back to the program.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me on Hello Houston.
Thank you. For those of you with questions, concerns, all of that, you can either call or text us at 713-440-8870. I guess the best place to start is, how is early voting going so far?
Well,
Any big problems?
It's going fairly smooth. In an odd year election, people, especially after presidential, people kind of think, oh, I've done my job, and they don't realize you have another job next November.
Yes.
And it came up pretty quickly. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, this is the most important job if you live and pay taxes in the state of Texas. They're local elections, right? Mm-hmm. Statewide and county and city. And we have some special races on this ballot that typically wouldn't take place in an odd year. So the first week was steady and smooth, but definitely not the turnout that we see, obviously, in a larger election. And so I'm so glad you're having me on here, because I need voters to get off their high knees and go cast their ballot, because your local elections are just as important as your federal and presidential elections.
A question we get all the time, and I just want to hit it first at the top, to check and make sure your registration is in order. Where should people go?
Yes, absolutely. You can go to Harris Votes for all things elections. There's a tab there. It says voter registration, leads you right to the voter registration's office, which is the tax assessor collector, and you can check your status. Not only can you just check your voter registration status, you can go to Harris Votes and view your voter-specific sample ballot. I encourage to not only make a plan to vote, but do your homework. 17 state constitutional amendments for and against, and as we all know, what for may be may not be for. It could be the opposite, and so they're not so easy to understand. So I encourage voters to do that. Look at your specific sample ballot. Also, search and see which one of the 70 different early voting centers you can choose from to go cast your ballot. And there are no waits. There are no lines, so no excuses.
You can get in and out quickly these days.
That's right. You can get in and out fairly quickly. But voting has been steady. It is fairly low, and this week you all are going to help us inform voters and make sure that they know they have the opportunity to cast their ballot.
Regarding a sample ballot, could somebody print that out?
Absolutely.
And take it with them? Because I'm looking at my sample ballot right now. There's so many propositions on here. I'm looking at this, and I would want to make sure that I go in and I'm ready.
Yes.
So you can print it out. You can take it in with you.
Written materials. The magic phrase
Don't bring it on your phone.
Is written materials. As much as we live our lives connected to our phones, right? You can't use that within the voting booth, but you can bring a printed copy of that sample ballot, even your notes on a notebook, as long as it's written materials is what Texas Election Code prescribes.
So what do we need to bring with us as far as ID? Because I just moved.
Okay.
So my address changed, my voter registration changed, my forwarding address changed, and my driver's license changed.
Yes.
What will you accept from me to let me vote?
Yes. So you can still use your driver's license. If it's not a Texas ID, if you've moved out of state, you can use your Texas driver's license. You can use any ID that's provided by the DPS. You can also use your passport. You can use a birth record with a photo on there. United States military IDs. You can also use your handgun license. Any of those documents will work, not just a driver's license. And DPS also will provide for free an election identification card if it's in a very small window of time that you can walk it with that day.
So if it's if it's my old address on my driver's license,
you can still use it.
You can still use it.
You can still use it. It doesn't stop you from voting as long as that voter registration is up to date. Now, if you are voting and you didn't update your voter registration by the deadline, you're still going to vote according to where you were registered before. You can fill out a form at the poll called an SOR, Statement of Residence, and as you go ahead and vote your ballot according to where you're registered, then fill out the SOR, and then your address will be updated for the next election.
Well, just so you know, I'm all up to speed.
Okay.
I
figured that. We were making eyeballs here, and I was thinking,
He's
no
just
way.
asking for a friend.
I'm all good to go. I'm just
Yes.
asking for all of our other
Absolutely.
fans out there.
Absolutely. And here's what's important to know, too, especially for college students, those items that you can provide other than a driver's license if you're from another place, but you're registered here. So, again, U.S. passport, citizenship documents, it all has to have a photo ID. That's what Texas laws prescribe. Military ID, handgun license, the Texas driver's license, a regular ID, and the election identification card. Again, this is all at harrisvotes.com, and that's definitely part of making a plan to vote, to have one of those IDs with you.
I apologize if you just said this, but expired driver's license, can you use that?
You can. It depends on the amount of time, though, it's been expired. I don't have that off the top of my head. I'm going to actually look it up in just a moment, but it can only be so long. Now, if it's been 10 years.
Yeah, no. but that picture 10 years ago was so much better.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can't always get that great. There was something that just left me a moment ago that's really important to know. For those who apply to vote by mail, the deadline was this past Friday. So if you applied and you're waiting on your mail ballot, you have many options. I am the county clerk of elections. I am not the county clerk of the USPS postal system, right? And so if you feel like it's getting closer to election day and you've not received your mail ballot, you can still go vote in person if you're able to. If you don't have it, you'll be provided a provisional ballot, but if you're afraid you're not going to get it in time. If you do have it and you don't think it's going to be mailed back to our office in time, you can simply take the mail ballot to a vote center, surrender it, and they'll let you vote a regular ballot. And of course, if you're a mail ballot voter and you say, hey, I can't get out of my vehicle, you can always vote curbside at a vote center.
Okay, we got a whole bunch of texts on Friday. I guess word had leaked you would be here. There was a lot of concern about mail-in, and one of the things that stood out to me, and I don't know the validity of it, is that in the last few days there were rule changes that came down and that they overwhelmed the voting offices. Is that true or false?
Not in terms of mail ballots. You might be thinking around the voter registration rolls being updated by Election Day. I'm not really sure because the state changed their system. And so there was a need for all of the counties to sync to the state system. But we were good to go prior to early voting in terms of all that information. But for ballot by mail, I've not heard anything in particular where folks are nervous other than if they missed that deadline on Friday because it has to be received in our office. But all the ballot by mails that we get, you can also go on Harris Votes and track your ballot by mail, right?
That's cool.
Hey, I sent an application. I want to make sure you all received it, and I'm looking to receive my ballot. And so you can go on Harris Votes, go to ballot by mail and ballot by mail tracker.
We're talking to Harris County Clerk Teneshia Hudspeth. If you'd like to ask any question about voting.
Any question.
She pretty much knows the answer to all of them. 713.
Yes, she does.
And I don't have any notes. I know this.
Yeah,
Right?
713-440-8870. So this week, only till Friday for early voting?
Only till Friday.
And the hours?
Yes, so 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. all days of early voting except this past Sunday. So you have until 7 p.m. to 70 different early vote centers. You can vote absolutely anywhere.
Which is my favorite thing. You can go to any polling location as long as you're registered in Harris County.
And this county clerk fought really hard to keep that when the legislature was kind of looking at getting rid of countywide.
Yes.
So you all should know, I worked with my colleagues across the state, and we all agreed no matter what side of the aisle you're on, the countywide is convenient and easy for voters. So
the other thing that came in was the question about, and I don't know that this is accurate either, but they said there was a change to curb voting and that you weren't allowed to do that anymore. Well,
that's what it is. It's the curbside voting.
Yes.
So the legislature passed an additional measure for curbside voting. Before anyone to come that curbside vote, we trusted that they couldn't get out of the vehicle or maybe they were sick. Now the voter has to fill out an oath or an affidavit that says they are they have to vote by curbside. And again, it's an honorary system.
Or beforehand?
No, at the time of voting, right? You're coming to a vote center, and just so you all know, it's not just specific special vote centers that you can vote curbside. By law, any vote center that you go to during either early voting or election day, it's typically near the handicap parking area or the front of the entrance. Every vote center is different. And there's a buzzer or a stand with a buzzer there. It indicates to the election workers on the inside, you need to vote curbside. It's really popular for those who are not mobile enough to get out of their vehicle or they're sick. Maybe they just got a COVID diagnosis, but hey, it's almost election day. And so those voters are asked by law, because now it's a new law, you have to fill out an oath or affidavit that signifies that you're eligible to vote curbside.
You're listening to Hello Houston. We are speaking with Harris County Clerk Teneshia Hudspeth, and Sherry from Katy is on the line. Sherry, what is your comment or question for the county clerk?
Okay, the first thing is she's right. You really got to read those amendments, and the League of Women Voters publication that I got from the library really clarifies the amendments.
Nice.
And the first question is, isn't it true that you can vote anywhere in your county even after early voting is over?
Well, on election day, thank you. You're so right. So if anyone's listening, that nonpartisan League of Women Voters Guide is great. It summarizes those amendments and helps you understand. In terms of voting anywhere, you can vote at any vote center within your county jurisdiction. Now, we're in a melting pot city, right, where you've got Fort Bend, Brazoria, all the different counties on the outside. You still have to vote in the county in which you're registered. So if you're in Harris County, which you're in Katy, so you're Harris County for the most part. I think there might be a little bit of Fort Bend out there. Then you can vote anywhere at the 70 locations for Harris County through early voting. And then the next opportunity to vote in person is Election Day. And you can vote anywhere at those 600 plus voting centers on Election Day.
If somebody is going out on the 31st to vote, the last day of early voting, I'm guessing you would recommend don't go in costume. They have to be able to visually see you.
Oh, gosh.
No makeup, none of that. Don't be
You know what? You
Halloween.
brought up a really good point, because here I was thinking, what costume is the county clerk going to wear as she's touring the county? Because I do go to a lot of vote centers. Halloween is always a lot of fun, and I'm sure that voters will have on costumes. Even maybe some of the election workers will have a little bit of fun with it. But look, if you're painting your full face and we can't recognize who you are, that's part of the voter ID law. So you might want to think about painting your face, maybe voting earlier that day so that you can be ready for that night. But that's a really good point. Like, don't go all full out, covered face, because that could be a issue.
And
yes.
we did have another question on YouTube who would like to know, can I bring my teenage daughter, 13 years old, with me to vote early?
You can absolutely do that. I bring my 9-year-old son with me to vote. And I remember my mother doing the same thing when I was a child. So yes, pass it forward. You can definitely bring your daughter with you to vote and have that experience, because we need to make sure she's a voter in a couple of years.
That's right.
If you have an elderly parent,
Yes.
but not someone who's affected with dementia or anything like that, so they are fully
Mentally
aware,
incapacitated.
but need help to vote, can you go into the poll with them?
You can absolutely do so. So you have different choices when you need assistance at polling locations. You can have an election worker assist you, or you can bring a family member or your 13-year-old daughter. This is very prevalent if you need someone to translate a language for you other than what the ballot, the languages that we have on the ballot. So a family member can come. They will take a little oath there saying they're going to guard the purity of the election and not tell you how to vote. But family members can, not your employer or like a labor union, obviously, or a candidate that's outside saying, will you vote for me? You want to be very careful. If it's a family member, you're good to go.
Why do you think so many people don't vote?
Yeah, that's a good one. We need a whole nother segment for that topic. There's a lot of voter apathy going on. And one thing I'll say for sure is it depends on how sexy the ballot is. And what I mean by that is, what's the platforms? What are the candidates that are running? What resonates with individuals? And while I'm the county clerk, right? I think every election's sexy, or it should be, right? And so we'll use that verbiage today. But, I think voters are driven by the circumstances of their counties, their state, their nation, what's going on, what resonates with them, and what doesn't, right? And right now we're in a different time, let's just say that. You have social media that's so heavily influenced. You don't know what's truth, what's myths, right? But people are driven by large elections where there's a lot of money spent to advertise, right? And why overall, I think maybe we can have some listeners come on one time and say, here's why, I don't particularly vote. I've heard so many different variations of things, but do know that when you don't vote, those are others that are making decisions for you. And local elections tend to suffer just a bit because turnout is so low. So that's why we're here today, because we want everybody to make their voices heard.
You talk about it being a sexy election. This one, if we're using that term, is very sexy because of Texas 18.
That's
and explain.
absolutely.
We've heard so much about the map change and districts and all that.
Yes. So typically in the odd year, you don't see a special congressional district election. But you all know that our the former mayor and former Congressman Sylvester Turner passed away in March earlier this year. The governor called the election for the November, making this a special election for Congressional District 18 to fill the vacancy because the office has been vacant since March of this year. No representation. 800,000 individuals live in CD 18 and 400,000 of them are registered voters. And so this election is important because CD 18 needs representation. So the person that's elected will fill the current vacancy through into next year, but they'll also, that race will be on the ballot in 2026 for the midterms to fill the full term. So this is not going to be the last we hear about CD 18. What's more important to know is there were 2 special sessions following the legislative session, and redistricting was on the menu during the legislature. And there will be map changes of CD 18 and 2026 starting the primary. So voters that vote in CD 18, if you've always been registered in CD 18, the lines have not changed for this November. They will change in 2026. But there is a pending court case taking place too. So, you know, it just makes my job lovely, by the way, just so you all know.
You ever thought it'd be boring?
But the to vote for CD 18 though would only be on the people's special ballot. Is that right?
That's right. Only those that are, this is really important to hear, listeners, only if you are registered and live in CD 18. There are some individuals, voters, that are going to vote centers thinking if they go to a certain area of the county, they'll see it on their ballot or they see the candidate on the news, but you have to live and be registered in Congressional District 18 to vote in that race.
Right, your ballot follows you.
Your ballot follows you. Where you live determines what's on your ballot. Now, the entire state will have the state constitutional amendments, which should be sexy because it's got everything from homestead exemptions to taxpayer dollars, health care, the judicial system. Those amendments cover it all, so it should be sexy, but, you know.
And like, so for example, I have a council member at large position on my ballot. So there are other
other special
elections
races, including the city of Houston at large 4. So the former council member, Letitia Plummer, or current council member, is vacating her seat to go run for another office. So that special race is on the ballot. And just so you know, CD 18 has 16 candidates in that race. City of Houston at large 4 has 15, and I think an opportunity for a write-in. And so, you know, voters, when I say do your homework, I mean, that League of Women Voters Guide is going to be really helpful because some of those candidates provide their platform for you to help make a decision.
If we have a special election runoff, when will that be?
It will be so this is really good. This gets better.
We're getting into
Listen
it.
up,
Good
right?
question, Frank.
So after this November, so there are other jurisdictions or entities throughout the county that we might be conducting elections for. Everything from Houston City College Trustee Board to Baytown, so on and so forth. So for those races in November that don't get 50% of the vote and 50% plus 1 vote, they will have a runoff in December, but not CD 18. So City of Houston at large 4 or any other races could go into a runoff in December, which will likely happen December 13th. CD 18's runoff can't take place until January because for a congressional district race, you have to have 45 days prior to the election to get mail ballots out into the field. So we're talking about a bigger race. And the Texas election code says when there's a special election for Congress, you can't have the election no sooner than 70 days out or no later than 77 days out after the election is canvassed. So election night happens. The results are unofficial until the election is canvassed, which is typically 10 to 14 days after that election. Wow. So the governor will have to call a special runoff, which will take place in January. And it definitely has me sitting by the edge of my seat wondering what's going to happen next. But we won't know that until election night.
Could he delay that runoff?
No, but I mean, not well. Let me be careful in how I answer this. According to law, it has to take place in January.
Okay.
Could there be a delay? I don't know. Right? If we're following the law, then it happens in January. Where it will get sticky is that, you know, this is the 3rd largest county in the nation, the largest in the state of Texas. If I'm running an election in January and the primaries as the beginning of March and early voting starts in February, it's not going to be so easy turning from one election to the next and changing the redistricting lines.
And then getting everyone actually sworn into Congress is a difficult situation.
It seems to be these days.
Seems to be. All right, Nora's on the line from the Museum District. Hi, Nora. What's your question for Teneshia Hudspeth?
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for having me. Just a really quick question on self-administered elections. I think I was reading something about that, particularly with school districts. I was just wondering what that means and if that means that they might have polling locations that are separate from like county-run locations.
That's a very good question. You must live a little bit in the political bubble. As you all know, entities, there's about 34 different entities, cities, school boards, districts. They can contract with the county clerk's office to run their elections, or they can choose to administer their own elections. So there are parts of the county like City of LaPorte who have their own elections team that runs their elections. And so if that is the case for this November, then those folks will have to go to the vote centers that they designate in their particular area. So if they don't contract with the county clerk's office, which is why it's important to go to Harris Votes and look at your specific sample ballot, that tells you what we have been contracted to run versus what we have not been. So that very well could be the case. And this happens in May elections as well.
Who's in charge of all the political signs and getting taken down after the election?
Yeah, the candidates. It's their job to put them up and take them down in a good amount of time, and they can very well be fined if they don't do so. But my office doesn't police that. I don't have the authority to do that, thank goodness. But we do suggest, hey, you can't put them out before a certain time. You got to pick them all up afterwards. And if they stay out too long, look, we've seen variations of what happens to some of those signs once they've hung out too long. But the candidates are responsible.
Your position, of course, is nonpartisan, even though this question is slightly partisan, so I'll let you take it how you can.
Okay.
YouTube writes, many Texas residents don't vote due to the myth that Texas is red and their vote won't count.
That very well could be the case. I think there's different reasons why people don't vote or choose to vote. As we know, for statewide races and many other different areas, the state might be more Republican. But then when you get to local counties like Harris County, the county could very well be blue and Democratic. But that should not be a reason why people don't vote, right? You should vote because it's very important to make your voice heard in all elections. Look, I'm the county clerk. Yes, I have to designate a party to run, but I show up with a nonpartisan spirit every day. I've worked under 4 county clerks, including Republicans or Democrats, and I work really hard to be transparent across the board. And so to that voter or whoever's thinking that, we want to see you show up to a vote center, make your voice heard, and go to harrisvotes.com.
And it's no coincidence you're wearing purple, correct?
And I'm wearing purple today. It is no coincidence, but you know what? Maybe I need to wear more purple between now and election
just
day,
purple
right?
until after the election.
That's right.
Harris County Clerk Teneshia Hudspeth, thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Go vote.
Go vote. Coming up.